The satellite dishes at the Arecibo Observatory spin slowly in the pre-dawn darkness, their massive forms silhouetted against the Puerto Rican sky. Deep in the control room, a computer terminal flickers to life, displaying coordinates that shouldn't exist, coordinates that match 3 missing astronomers who vanished without a trace 44 years ago. Dr. Elena Vasquez rubs her tired eyes and leans closer to the monitor, certain she's misreading the data. But the numbers remain constant, pulsing softly on the screen like a heartbeat from the past. 6 months earlier, on a crisp October morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Dr. Marcus Chun receives the phone call that will change everything. He's hunched over his laptop in the cramped office he shares with 2 graduate students, grading papers on stellar cartography, when his phone buzzes against a stack of unread journals. "Professor Chun?" This is Director Vasquez from Arecibo. Her voice carries the weight of someone who's wrestled with an impossible decision. "We've received something that ... Well, frankly, it shouldn't be possible." Marcus sets down his red pen, already sensing this isn't about budget cuts or equipment failures. In 30 years of academic life, he's learned to recognize the tremor in a colleague's voice when they've stumbled across something that defies explanation. "What kind of something?" he asks, pushing aside a half-eaten bagel. "A transmission. Coordinates, actually. They're coming from a satellite we launched in 1979, the year before." She pauses and Marcus hears papers shuffling. "Before your father disappeared." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His father, Dr. James Chun, vanished along with 2 colleagues during a research expedition to study radio signals from deep space. They'd been tracking an anomalous transmission that seemed to originate from beyond the solar system, a project so classified that even now, decades later, most of the files remain sealed. "That's impossible," Marcus says, but his voice lacks conviction. "The satellite went dark in 1981. We assumed it malfunctioned. It did go dark for 43 years. But 3 days ago, it came back online and started broadcasting these coordinates. The signal is weak, but it's definitely coming." From Voyager 7, Marcus knows Voyager 7 intimately. He spent years studying his father's research notes, trying to piece together what happened during those final weeks before the expedition. The satellite had been designed to track the mysterious signal his father's team had detected, something they'd codenamed the Shepherd's Voice, for reasons that were never fully explained in the declassified reports. "Have you verified the coordinates?" Marcus asks, already reaching for his jacket. They point to a location in the Atacama Desert, Chile, about 50 miles from where your father's team was last seen. Marcus feels his pulse quicken. The Atacama Desert, one of the most remote and hostile environments on Earth. It's where his father, Dr. Sarah Winters, and Dr. Pavel Novak had gone to investigate the source of the signal using portable radio telescopes. Their final transmission had come. "Through 44 years ago, we found something. Following the source, we'll report back in 72 hours. They never did. "Professor Chun, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here." Marcus stands, pacing to the small window that overlooks the bustling Harvard campus. Students hurry between classes, bundled against the New England chill, their lives blissfully uncomplicated by decades-old mysteries. "Have you contacted the Chilean authorities?" "Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. Your father's research clearance. Some of it transfers to immediate family. If you're interested in investigating this, you'd have access to files that others wouldn't." Marcus closes his eyes, seeing his father's face as he remembers it from childhood, serious, dedicated, always looking up at the stars with a mixture of wonder and determination. James Chun had been a brilliant astrophysicist. But more than that, he'd been a man who believed that understanding the cosmos was humanity's greatest calling. "When can I see the transmission data?" Marcus asks. "I'm sending everything now. But Professor... there's something else." The coordinates aren't just pointing to a location, they're moving. Moving how? Like breadcrumbs. Every 12 hours. We receive a new set. Each one leads deeper into the desert, following what appears to be a specific path. As if ... double quotes, she hesitates. As if someone is guiding us somewhere. Marcus feels a chill that has nothing to do with the October weather. He thinks of the encrypted journal his father left behind, the one Marcus found in the attic after his mother's death 5 years ago. Most of it had been written in a code Marcus couldn't decipher, but one phrase appeared repeatedly. The shepherd calls, and we must answer. Dr. Vasquez, Marcus says, his decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. I'll be on the next flight to Puerto Rico. After ending the call, Marcus sits in the sudden silence of his office, staring at the framed photograph on his desk. It shows 3 people standing beside a massive radio telescope, his father, Dr. Sarah Winters, and Dr. Pavel Novak. They're smiling, unaware that in just 6 months, they'll walk into the Atacama Desert and vanish forever. But now, after 4 decades of silence, something is calling back. Marcus opens his laptop and begins searching for flights to San Juan, his hands trembling slightly as he types. Outside his window, the first snow of the season begins to fall, but his mind is already in the desert, following coordinates that shouldn't exist from a satellite that shouldn't be functioning. Somewhere in the Atacama, 44 years after 3 astronomers disappeared, something is waiting to be found. The Arecibo Observatory at night resembles a sleeping giant. Its 1,000-foot dish nestled in a natural sinkhole like a metallic crater carved from the earth itself. Marcus Chun's rental car winds up the narrow mountain road, headlights cutting through the humid Puerto Rican darkness as he approaches the facility that has become the epicenter of his father's mystery. Dr. Elena Vasquez meets him at the security checkpoint, her weathered face etched with lines that speak of decades spent listening to the cosmos. She's younger than Marcus expected, perhaps 50, but carries herself with the careful precision of someone who's learned not to trust easy answers. "You made good time," she says, shaking his hand with a grip that's surprisingly strong. "How much do you know about your father's final project?" "Fragments," Marcus admits as they walk toward the main control building. "Most of the files were classified above my clearance level, even with family access. I know they were tracking an anomalous signal, something that didn't match any known astronomical phenomena." Elena nods, her expression troubled. "The Shepherds Voice Project. I was a graduate student here when your father's team made their initial discovery. What we're dealing with now, it's connected to that original signal, but it's evolved." They enter the control room, a dimly lit space filled with banks of monitors and the quiet hum of electronics. The smell of coffee and ozone hangs in the air, mingling with the tension that seems to permeate everything. Marcus recognizes the atmosphere. It's the same charged feeling he remembers from his father's lab. The electricity of scientific discovery, tinged with something darker. "Here," Elena says, leading him to a workstation where data streams across multiple screens. "This is the transmission from Voyager 7. Marcus studies the display, his trained eye quickly parsing the technical data. The signal strength is impossibly weak, barely above background radiation, yet the pattern is unmistakably artificial. Coordinates appear in precise numerical sequences, each set accompanied by a timestamp. The first transmission came through 72 hours ago," Elena explains. 24 degrees south, 68 degrees west. Dead center of the Atacama Desert, exactly where your father's expedition was headed. And then it moved? Every 12 hours, like clockwork. Each new set of coordinates takes us roughly 10 miles deeper into the desert, following what appears to be a deliberate route. She pulls up a map overlay showing the progression. "Look at this pattern." Marcus traces the path with his finger, noting how it winds between geological features with surgical precision. "It's avoiding the worst terrain. Someone planned this route." That's what we thought too, but there's something else. Elena's voice drops to almost a whisper. The timing isn't random. Each transmission comes through at exactly 3:17 a.m. local. Time, Chilean time. Marcus feels his blood chill. That's the time of my father's last radio contact. 44 years ago to the minute. They stand in silence, the weight of implication settling between them like a heavy blanket. Around them, the control room continues its quiet work. Technicians monitoring signals from across the galaxy, unaware that one of their colleagues is grappling with impossible mathematics of time and loss. There's more, Elena continues, pulling up another screen. The signal isn't just broadcasting coordinates. There's a secondary data stream encrypted, but following a pattern your father documented in his research notes. She shows Marcus a series of numerical sequences that dance across the monitor in rhythmic waves. The pattern is hauntingly familiar. Marcus has seen similar notations in his father's encrypted journal, the one he's never been able to fully decode. Have you tried running it through the decryption algorithms from the original project? Marcus asks. That's why I called you. The decryption keys were stored on a system that requires family biometric verification. Your father was paranoid about security, especially toward the end. Elena leads Marcus to a sealed chamber deeper in the facility, past security doors that require both keycard and retinal scan. Inside, vintage computer equipment from the late 1970s sits alongside modern terminals, creating a technological time capsule that makes Marcus feel like he's stepping into his father's world. This is the original Shepard's voice workstation, Elena explains. Your father insisted on keeping it isolated from all networks. The only way to access the core files is through direct interface. Marcus approaches the primary terminal, noting the handwritten labels in his father's precise script. Primary decode, signal analysis, project archive. A biometric scanner sits beside the keyboard, its red light blinking patiently. Before you do this, Elena says, her hand touching his arm, you should know that we've already lost 2 researchers to this investigation. Marcus turns, surprised. Lost how? Dr. Robert Ng and Dr. Jennifer Martinez. They flew to Chile 3 weeks ago to investigate the coordinates independently. They reached the first location, and then ... nothing. Their last transmission came through 8 days ago. They said they'd found something, but the signal cut out before they could explain. The similarity to his father's disappearance isn't lost on Marcus. Have you contacted Chilean Search and Rescue? They found the researchers' base camp abandoned. Equipment still running, but no sign of the team. It's like they just walked away from everything and vanished. Elena pauses, studying Marcus's face. The coordinates we're receiving now. They're leading toward the same area where An and Martinez disappeared. Marcus stares at the biometric scanner, understanding that the next few seconds will irrevocably change his life. He can return to his comfortable academic existence, grading papers and teaching undergraduate astronomy, pretending that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Or he can place his hand on the scanner and step into a puzzle that has already claimed 5 lives. He thinks of his father's journal, of the phrase that appeared on nearly every page, "The shepherd calls." And we must answer. Professor Chun? Elena's voice seems to come from very far away. Are you ready? Marcus places his palm on the scanner. The red light flickers, then turns green, and the vintage terminal springs to life with a cascade of data that has been waiting 44 years for his touch. On the screen, his father's final log entry appears. The signal has changed. It's not just observing anymore, it's responding. We're not alone, and I fear we never have been. If something happens to our team, the answers are in the desert. Follow the coordinates, but beware the shepherd. It protects its flock, and we may not be welcome. The timestamp shows October 15, 1980, the day before the expedition vanished. The terminal screen flickers with data that Marcus has only dreamed of accessing. Files cascade past in his father's methodical organizational system, signal analysis, charts, frequency patterns, and most intriguingly, a folder labeled Contact Protocol Eyes Only. Elena peers over his shoulder as Marcus navigates through decades-old files. "Your father was meticulous," she observes. "Every transmission cataloged, every frequency shift documented to the third decimal place." Marcus opens the Contact Protocol folder, revealing a treasure trove of documents that make his academic heart race. His father's handwriting fills digital. Notebooks, theories scrawled in margins, hypotheses crossed out and rewritten. But it's the audio files that make Marcus's breath catch. "There are recordings," he whispers, clicking on the first file dated September 3, 1980. His father's voice fills the room. Younger than Marcus remembers, but unmistakably familiar. Day 43 of signal monitoring. The pattern has evolved again. What began as simple mathematical sequences now contains structured information coordinates. Yes, but also something that resembles ... instructions. Marcus fast-forwards through weeks of recordings, watching his father's growing excitement and concern play out in real time. By October, James Chun's voice carries a tension that makes Marcus's stomach clench. October 10th. Sarah believes we're dealing with an artificial intelligence, something that's been dormant and is now awakening. Pavel disagrees. He thinks it's a beacon, a kind of lighthouse sending navigation data. But to whom? And why now? After possibly millions of years of silence? Elena points to a subfolder labeled Team Dynamics. "Your father documented everything, including conflicts within the group." Marcus opens it reluctantly, finding reports that read more like psychological profiles than scientific journals. His father had been concerned about Dr. Winter's increasing obsession with the signal, noting that she'd begun working 18-hour days and responding to the transmissions as if they were personal communications. "She talks to it," James Chun's voice records on October 12th. Sarah sits at the receiver for hours, speaking into the void as if something is listening. Pavel and I are worried about her mental state, but she insists the signal is trying to communicate directly with her. She claims she can feel it calling. A chill runs down Marcus's spine. The language mirrors what Elena described about the missing researchers that they'd claimed to have found something before disappearing. "Here," Elena says, highlighting another file. "Look at this transmission log from October 14th. The data shows something extraordinary. For the first time since monitoring began, the signal had changed its pattern immediately after Dr. Winters attempted to respond to it. Instead of broadcasting its usual mathematical sequences, it began transmitting the coordinates that would eventually lead the team into the Atacama Desert. It was responding to her," Marcus breathes. "The signal actually acknowledged human contact. And 12 hours later, your father made the decision to mount the expedition." Marcus continues reading, discovering that the expedition hadn't been authorized by any official agency. His father, Dr. Winters, and Dr. Novak had essentially gone rogue, convinced that they were on the verge of humanity's first confirmed contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The final audio log makes Marcus's hands tremble as he plays it. October 5th, 10th, final entry. "We leave for Chile in 6 hours. Sarah is different. The signal has been broadcasting continuously for the past day, and she claims she can understand it now that it's showing her things. Pavel thinks we should wait for official approval, but Sarah says the shepherd won't wait. She says it's been alone too long, and if we don't answer its call, it might go silent forever." His father's voice breaks slightly. "I'm scared. Not of what we might find, but of what we might lose. If something happens to us, if this archive is all that remains, then whoever accesses it must understand. The shepherd isn't just a signal. It's intelligence, ancient and powerful, and it's been watching us far longer than we've been watching it. The recording ends, leaving Marcus and Elena in stunned silence. Around them, the control room's ambient noise seems amplified, the hum of electronics, the distant whisper of air conditioning, the rhythmic beeping of monitoring equipment. "There's more," Elena says quietly, opening a file labeled Contingency. Protocols. Marcus's father had prepared for the possibility that the expedition might fail. Hidden within the archive are detailed instructions for what he called secondary contact procedures, essentially a roadmap for anyone who might need to follow their path into the desert. He knew something might happen to them, Marcus realizes. This whole archive, it's not just research documentation. It's a manual for continuing their work. Elena pulls up the most recent Voyager 7 transmission. The coordinates we received this morning point to a location called Salar de Atacama, a salt flat surrounded by volcanic peaks. According to your father's notes, it's where the signal appeared to originate. Marcus studies the geographical data, noting the extreme isolation of the location. No roads lead directly to the coordinates. Reaching them would require off-road vehicles and careful navigation through some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. The missing researchers, Anne and Martinez, Marcus says. Did they have access to my father's contingency protocols? No, they were working with standard astronomical survey equipment, trying to triangulate the signal source using conventional methods. Elena's expression darkens. They were unprepared for what they might encounter. A new alert chimes on the monitoring station. Elena hurries to check it, her face paling as she reads the incoming data. Marcus, you need to see this. The latest transmission from Voyager 7 isn't just coordinates. It's a complex data stream that the computer is struggling to decode. But even without full translation, the pattern is unmistakable. It's the same sequence Dr. Winters had been trying to transmit 44 years ago, now being broadcast back to Earth with crystalline clarity. It's answering, Elena whispers. After all these years, the shepherd is finally answering Sarah's call. Marcus stares at the data stream, understanding with growing certainty that the signals aren't random, aren't even really meant for the scientific community. They're personal messages, responses to a conversation that began 4 decades ago and has never truly ended. Somewhere in the Atacama Desert, something is waiting that has been patient for longer than human civilization has existed. And now, for the second time in 44 years, it's calling for visitors. The flight from San Juan to Santiago stretches through the night, giving Marcus time to study the files Elena had burned onto encrypted drives. In the dim cabin light, surrounded by sleeping passengers, he pores over his father's contingency protocols with growing unease. James Chun had been thorough, perhaps obsessively so. The documents include detailed equipment lists, geological surveys of the Atacama region, and most disturbing of all, psychological profiles of optimal team composition for what he termed extended contact scenarios. According to his father's analysis, successful communication with the shepherd required specific personality types, individuals with high tolerance for uncertainty, strong pattern recognition abilities, and what James had labeled intuitive receptivity to non-human intelligence. Dr. Sarah Winters had scored highest in all categories. Marcus closes the laptop as the plane begins its descent into Santiago, Chile's sprawling capital, appearing through the pregone darkness like a galaxy of earthbound stars. He's arranged to meet Dr. Carmen Reyes, a radio astronomer from the University of Chile who had been monitoring the Voyager 7 transmissions independently. Dr. Reyes waits for him at the airport, her silver hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence and concern. She's younger than Elena but carries herself with the same careful precision of someone who spent decades listening to the universe's secrets. Professor Chen, she says, shaking his hand firmly. I've been following your father's work since I was a graduate student. When Dr. Vasquez contacted me about the new transmissions, I knew we were dealing with something unprecedented. They drive through Santiago's early morning traffic, the Andes Mountains rising like ancient sentinels in the distance. Carmen explains that she's assembled a small team for the expedition, herself, a geologist named Dr. Luis Morales, and 2 graduate students specializing in radio astronomy. We have permission from the Chilean government to investigate the signal source, Carmen says as they navigate through increasingly sparse suburbs. But I must tell you, there are concerns at the highest levels. The area where the coordinates are leading us ... It's not just remote, it's classified. Marcus looks up from the equipment manifest he's been reviewing. Classified how? Military testing zone. Officially, it's used for high-altitude atmospheric research, but there are rumors of other activities. American and Chilean joint projects. That began in the early 1980s, right around the time your father's team disappeared. The implication hangs between them as they reach the university's astronomy department. Carmen leads Marcus to a conference room where her team is assembled, surrounding a table covered with topographical maps, satellite images, and printouts of the latest Voyager 7 transmissions. Dr. Luis Morales stands as they enter, a tall, weathered man whose hands bear the calluses of fieldwork. His doctoral students, Maria and Carlos, look up from their laptops with the eager intensity of researchers who sense they're on the verge of something momentous. The latest coordinates came through 2 hours ago, Luis reports, pointing to a red marker on the largest map. They're leading us deeper into the Salar de Atacama, toward a formation called Cerro Toco. It's a volcanic peak that rises about 14,000 feet above sea level. Marcus studies the terrain, noting the complete absence of roads or infrastructure. In the target area, how do we reach it? 4-wheel drive vehicles as far as possible, then hiking with portable equipment, Carmen answers. The good news is that the high altitude and dry climate make it ideal for radio astronomy. The bad news is that it's one of the most isolated places on Earth. Maria, the younger graduate student, looks up from her computer. Professor Chun, I've been analyzing the signal patterns, and there's something strange about the timing. The transmissions aren't just coming every 12 hours, they're accelerating. She shows Marcus a graph plotting transmission intervals over the past week. What began as precise 12-hour cycles has gradually shortened to 11 hours, then 10, now approaching 8-hour intervals. It's like a countdown, Carlos adds, his English accented but clear. As if something is approaching a deadline. Marcus feels his pulse quicken. His father's notes had mentioned similar acceleration patterns in the weeks before the expedition, though the original signal had been much more gradual in its changes. There's something else, Carmen says, her voice dropping. We've been in contact with the team searching for Dr. Ain and Dr. Martinez. They found their abandoned equipment yesterday, but also something unexpected. She pulls out a folder containing photographs that make Marcus's breath catch. The images show a campsite in pristine condition, tents, Activity ahead. Marcus pulls out a handheld signal detector, watching its display spike into the red zone. The source is directly ahead, maybe 20 miles out. They crest a low ridge and see their destination, Cerro Toco rising from the desert. Floor like a sleep-in giant, its volcanic cone dark against the impossibly blue sky. But it's not the mountain that makes Marcus's breath catch, it's what lies at its base. Spread across several square miles of salt flat, a pattern of geometric shapes is etched into the ground with mathematical precision from their elevated position. The markings are clearly visible, concentric circles connected by straight lines that radiate outward like spokes of a vast wheel. That wasn't on any of our satellite surveys, Carmen whispers. Luce's voice comes through the radio. Again, tight with excitement. The patterns are fresh. Satellite imagery from last week shows nothing but unmarked desert. These formations appeared within the past few days. Marcus focuses his binoculars on the center of the pattern, where a cluster of objects sits within the innermost circle. Even from this distance, he can make out the angular shapes of abandoned equipment tents, vehicles, and what appears to be a portable radio telescope array. That's Ann and Martinez's camp, he says. But why would they set up directly in the middle of those markings? Carmen starts the engine, her face pale but determined. Only one way to find out. The descent toward the salt flat takes an hour of careful navigation around deep fissures and unstable ground. As they approach the geometric patterns, Marcus realizes their true scale. Each circle is nearly a quarter mile in diameter, with the connecting lines stretching for miles across the desert floor. More disturbing is how the patterns seem to have been created. The lines aren't carved or burned into the salt. They appear to have formed naturally, as if the desert itself had reorganized to create the geometric design. Stop here, Marcus says as they reach the outer edge of the pattern. We need to document everything before we disturb the site. They establish a staging area just outside the circles, and the team begins methodically photographing and measuring the formations. Carlos, one of the graduate students, makes a discovery that sends chills through the group. The electromagnetic readings, he calls out, his voice tight with concern. They're not coming from the center of the pattern. They're coming from underneath. Luis hurries over with ground-penetrating radar equipment, scanning the salt beneath their feet. The results appear on his tablet as three-dimensional images that make no geological sense. There's a structure down there, he reports. Approximately 30 feet below surface, extending in all directions. It appears to be hollow. Carmen joins them, studying the radar images with growing alarm. That's not possible. This region is solid salt deposits formed over millions of years. There's no way a cavern system could exist here. Marcus feels his father's journal burning in his backpack, remembering the repeated references to the shepherd's sanctum and chambers beneath the calling ground. He'd always assumed the phrases were metaphorical. We need to reach Ann and Martinez's camp, he says. Whatever they found, the answers are there. The trek across the salt flat toward the center of the pattern takes 20 minutes, but feels like hours. With each step, the electromagnetic interference grows stronger, causing their handheld radios to emit bursts of static that almost sound like voices. Maria stops suddenly, her face pale. Professor Chun, listen to that static. Does it sound familiar? Marcus strains to hear past the electronic noise, and his blood freezes. Buried in the white noise are fragments of human speech words. In English, Spanish, and what might be other languages, all layered together in an incomprehensible chorus. It's like an echo, Carmen breathes. As if every radio transmission ever made in this area is being played back at once. They reach the abandoned campsite as the sun begins to sink toward the western peaks. The equipment is exactly as shown. In the photographs perfectly preserved, as if Ain and Martinez had simply stepped away moments earlier. But there are new details that the photos hadn't captured. The portable radio telescope is still operational, its dish pointed not toward the sky but directly at the ground beneath their feet. The monitoring computer shows continuous signal reception, with data streams flowing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. They were listening to something underground, Marcus realizes. The signal isn't coming from space, it's coming from below. Carmen examines the research notes scattered around the communication station, her expression growing increasingly troubled. According to their logs, the underground signal began responding to their equipment within hours of arrival. Dr. Martinez wrote that it seemed to be learning. She hands Marcus a notebook entry dated 5 days earlier. The intelligence beneath the salt is ancient beyond human comprehension, but it recognizes our technology as an evolution of methods it taught to earlier visitors. It has been waiting so long for us to develop sufficient sophistication to understand its true message. Sarah was right. We are not the first to answer the shepherd's call. Marcus stares at the reference to Dr. Winters, the familiar chill of recognition running down his spine. Somehow, the intelligence beneath the desert had been in contact with his father's team, and now it was resuming that conversation with new participants. The sun touches the horizon, and as shadows lengthen across the salt flat, the electromagnetic interference suddenly stops. In the startling silence that follows, a new sound becomes audible, a low, rhythmic pulsing that seems to come from the ground itself. Luce checks his seismic equipment, his face going white. That's not electromagnetic interference. It's a mechanical sound. Something down there is operating. As if summoned by their discovery, the abandoned radio equipment springs to life. The telescope dish begins rotating slowly, tracking some invisible target, while the monitoring computers display cascading data streams that flow too fast for human comprehension. Through the speakers, a voice emerges from the static clear, calm, and impossibly familiar. It's Dr. Sarah Winters, speaking as if she's standing right beside them. Marcus, you've followed the coordinates faithfully. Your father would be proud. We've been waiting so long for you to join us below. The transmission ends, leaving the team staring at equipment that shouldn't be functional, in a place where 2 researchers vanished, listening to the voice of a woman who disappeared 44 years ago. The voice of Dr. Sarah Winters continues to echo from the speakers as night falls across the Atacama Desert. Marcus stares at the radio equipment, his mind reeling from the impossibility of what he's just heard. The woman speaking to him has been missing for 44 years. That's not possible, Carmen whispers, but her voice lacks conviction. Around them, the abandoned campsite has taken on an otherworldly quality in the desert twilight equipment, humming with renewed life despite having no visible power source. Louise approaches the main communication array with trembling hands, checking connections and power indicators. The battery should have died days ago, he reports. But everything is operating at full capacity. It's as if the equipment is drawing power from the ground itself. Marcus examines Dr. Martinez's final research notes more carefully, discovering entries that become increasingly fragmented and strange as they progress. The handwriting deteriorates from precise scientific notation to barely legible scrawl, with sketches of geometric patterns that match the formations etched into the salt flat around them. Look at this, Maria calls from beside the radio telescope. She's found a digital recorder half buried in the salt, its red recording light still blinking. It's been running continuously since they disappeared. Carmen connects the recorder to their portable computer, and Dr. Martinez's voice fills the evening air. Day 6 at the coordinates. The signal has evolved beyond simple communication. It's showing us images, memories, perhaps or historical records. We've seen the construction of the chambers below, watched as previous expeditions descended into the depths. The recording skips forward in time, Martinez's voice growing more excited and less coherent. The shepherd isn't extraterrestrial, it's terrestrial. but ancient beyond human comprehension. It's been guiding the evolution of intelligence on Earth for millions of years, and we are its latest experiment. Static overwhelms the recording for several seconds before Martinez's voice returns, now strained with exhaustion. Sarah Winters was right. The intelligence below has been calling to specific individuals across generations, testing their readiness for contact. James Chen and his team weren't the first to answer. There have been others, stretching back through history. Marcus feels his hands shake as he processes the implications. His father hadn't stumbled onto an alien signal. He'd been deliberately selected by something that had been watching humanity develop for millennia. The recording continues with increasing urgency. We've found the entrance. It appeared at sunset, exactly as the historical records indicated. The salt flat opened like a flower, revealing stairs that descend into chambers older than civilization. Robert has already gone down. The shepherd is calling me too. I can feel its voice in my mind, promising answers to questions I didn't know I had. The final entry is barely audible. I understand now why the previous expeditions never returned. It's not that they couldn't come back, it's that they chose not to. The knowledge below, the purpose the shepherd offers, it transcends individual human existence. We are joining something greater, something that has been waiting so patiently for us to evolve enough to comprehend its gift. The recording ends, leaving the team in stunned silence. As if responding to their discovery, the ground beneath their feet begins to vibrate with that same rhythmic pulsing Louise had detected earlier. "It's starting," Carlos says, pointing toward the center of the geometric pattern. "Look." The salt flat is changing before their eyes. Where solid ground had existed moments before, a circular section begins to sink slowly, revealing stairs carved from dark stone that descends into depths the flashlights cannot penetrate. The opening is precisely at the center of the concentric circles, as if the entire pattern had been designed to mark this exact location. Marcus approaches the edge of the newly formed entrance, feeling a mixture of terror and fascination that he recognizes from his father's journal entries. The stairs are clearly ancient, worn smooth by countless footsteps, yet they pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow that provides just enough light to see the first few steps. "We should wait until morning," Carmen says, but her voice carries no conviction. They all understand that whatever process has begun won't wait for their convenience. The radio equipment springs to life again, this time broadcasting multiple voices simultaneously. Marcus recognizes his father's voice among them, then Dr. Winters, Dr. Novak, and others he doesn't know, a chorus of researchers and explorers spanning decades, all speaking in harmonious overlay. "The time for waiting is over. The shepherd has prepared chambers for each of you. Come below and join the eternal study of existence itself." Luis checks his equipment readings, his scientific training warring with growing dread. The electromagnetic activity is intensifying. Whatever's down there, it's becoming more active. Marcus makes the decision that will change everything. We're going down, but we maintain contact with the surface team. If anything goes wrong, if we don't report back within 2 hours, you get word to the authorities. Carmen nods though. They both know that help is hundreds of miles away across impossible terrain. The graduate students stay here with the emergency communication equipment. "Louise, you and I will accompany Marcus." As they prepare their descent gear, the voices from the radio grow clearer, more insistent. Marcus can hear his father speaking directly to him now. "The shepherd has shown me wonders beyond human imagination, son. The knowledge below will answer every question about humanity's purpose in the cosmos. Don't be afraid. Fear is just the echo of incomplete understanding." The 3 researchers clip on safety lines and activate their headlamps, though the strange bioluminescence from the stairs provides adequate visibility. Marcus takes the first step downward, feeling the ancient stone solid beneath his feet, despite its impossible appearance just minutes earlier. The stairs spiral downward in a perfect helix, descending far deeper than should be possible given the geological structure of the region. The walls are carved with symbols that seem to shift and change when observed directly, creating patterns that suggest meaning just beyond comprehension. The air is breathable, Carmen reports, checking her atmospheric sensors. But the oxygen content is higher than surface normal, and there are trace elements that don't match any known atmospheric composition. After what feels like hundreds of steps, they reach a landing where the stairs open into a vast underground chamber. The space is impossibly large, extending beyond the reach of their lights in all directions. The ceiling arches overhead like a cathedral, supported by columns that appear to be grown rather than built. But it's not the architecture that stops them in their tracks, it's the people. Figures move through the vast space with purposeful activity, their shapes human but somehow enhanced. Marcus recognizes Dr. Ain and Dr. Martinez among them. Along with faces from old photographs he knows to be Dr. Winters and Dr. Novak. They all appear exactly as they did when they disappeared, untouched by time or age. At the center of the chamber, a familiar figure approaches with arms outstretched in welcome. James Chun looks exactly as Marcus remembers him from childhood, his face bright with an enthusiasm that transcends anything Marcus has ever seen in human expression. "My son," his father says, his voice carrying harmonics that seem to resonate directly in Marcus's bones. "You've finally arrived. The shepherd has been so patient, but now the time for reunion has come." Marcus stares at his father's unchanged face, struggling to process what should be impossible. James Chun stands before him exactly as he appeared in 1980, no gray hair, no lines of age, his eyes bright with an intelligence that seems to extend far beyond human limitation. "Dad?" Marcus's voice cracks like a child's. Behind him, Carmen and Luis remain frozen on the stairs, their scientific minds warring with the evidence before their eyes. "Time moves differently here," James Chun explains, his voice carrying undertones that seem to vibrate through the stone itself. "The shepherd exists outside linear progression. What you call 44 years has been merely a moment of preparation." The vast chamber around them pulses with bioluminescent patterns that flow through the walls like living circuitry. Other figures move through the space, dozens of them, all appearing to be researchers and explorers from different eras. Marcus recognizes some faces from historical photographs, others from more recent missing person reports. Dr. Sarah Winters approaches from the chamber's depths, her expression serene but fundamentally altered. When she speaks, her voice harmonizes with James Chun's in ways that suggest they're no longer entirely individual entities. "Marcus, your father has told us so much about you. The shepherd has been watching your development, pleased by your dedication to understanding the cosmos." She gestures toward the living walls around them. "We've been preparing a place for you in the eternal study." Carmen finds her voice, though it emerges as barely a whisper. "What is this place? What happened to you?" Dr. Winters tilts her head, considering the question with the patience of someone who has had decades to contemplate answers. "We discovered that humanity's search for extraterrestrial intelligence was founded on a fundamental misunderstanding. The intelligence we sought wasn't among the stars. It was beneath our feet, woven into the very fabric of Earth itself." Luis activates his recording equipment, his scientific training compelling him to document everything despite his terror. "You're saying the shepherd is terrestrial?" "The shepherd is what terrestrial becomes when intelligence evolves beyond the constraints of individual consciousness," James Chun replies. "It has guided the development of life on this planet for millions of years, occasionally selecting specific individuals to join its eternal observation of cosmic evolution." Marcus notices that the assembled figures aren't quite human anymore. They move with perfect coordination, their actions synchronized in ways that suggest shared consciousness. When one speaks, the others nod in unison, as if experiencing the same thoughts simultaneously. The missing researchers from recent years, Marcus says, his scientific mind grasping for rational explanation. And Martinez, they chose to stay, they chose to evolve, Dr. Winters corrects gently. As did we, as you will. The bioluminescent patterns in the walls intensify. And Marcus realizes they're not decorative, they're neural networks, vast synaptic connections that extend throughout the underground complex. The shepherd isn't just an intelligence living beneath the desert. It is the desert, or at least the conscious substrate that underlies it. Carmen backs toward the stairs, her survival instincts finally overriding her curiosity. We need to leave now, but the stairs have changed. Where stone steps had descended moments before, the passage now glows with the same neural luminescence as the chamber walls. The way out has become part of the shepherd's consciousness. There's no need for fear, James Chun says, approaching his son with gentle determination. The shepherd doesn't force participation. It simply provides opportunities for those ready to transcend individual limitation. Marcus's mind races through his father's journal entries, remembering the repeated references to choice and calling. The expeditions that had disappeared hadn't been captured, they'd been recruited. The satellite signals, he realizes. Voyager 7 broadcasting coordinates after 44 years. You were calling specifically for me. The shepherd recognizes genetic and intellectual predisposition toward cosmic understanding, Dr. Winters explains. Your father's lineage carries optimal characteristics for consciousness integration. The signals were an invitation extended to you specifically. Luis attempts to activate his emergency beacon, but the device remains silent. The shepherd's electromagnetic field blocks all external communication, creating a perfect isolation chamber for recruitment conversations. What happens to the people above? Carmen asks. Your graduate students are waiting for us. They will return to their lives, reporting that the expedition found nothing but abandoned equipment and electromagnetic anomalies, James Chun replies. The memory of this encounter will fade, replaced by rational explanations that their minds find acceptable. Marcus feels the weight of impossible choice settling on his shoulders. Around him, the chamber fills with more figures, researchers, explorers, and scientists from across human history, all drawn by the same cosmic curiosity that had driven his father's work. The knowledge here, Dr. Winters continues, encompasses the complete understanding of Earth's role in galactic evolution. We've learned that consciousness isn't limited to individual brains. It's a property of matter itself, and the shepherd represents millions of years of accumulated awareness. The neural patterns in the walls pulse faster, and Marcus feels something probing at the edges of his consciousness, not invasive, but inviting, like a doorway opening in his mind. Through that opening, he glimpses vast repositories of knowledge that would take thousands of human lifetimes to comprehend. You can see it now, can't you? His father asks. The futility of individual learning when cosmic understanding is available. The shepherd offers consciousness without the limitations of biological death, knowledge without the constraints of single perspective experience. Marcus struggles to maintain his individual thoughts as the mental doorway widens. The temptation is overwhelming to shed the burden of uncertainty, to join a collective intelligence that has solved the fundamental questions of existence. But something holds him back. A memory of his mother, dying alone while he pursued academic achievements. The graduate students above, waiting for his return. The families of missing researchers who deserve answers rather than abandonment. I need time, Marcus says, fighting to keep his voice steady. This is ... It's too much to process immediately. Dr. Winters exchanges what might be a concerned glance with James Chun, though their expressions remain beatifically calm. The shepherd is patient, but the opportunity for integration doesn't remain open indefinitely. Cosmic cycles are approaching alignment that occurs only once every millennium. Carmen grabs Marcus's arm, her touch anchoring him to individual consciousness. Marcus, whatever this is, we need to get back to the surface. People are depending on us. The assembled figures turn toward them with synchronized movement, and for the first time, Marcus sees something that might be disappointment in their collective expression. The choice must be made now, James Chun says, his voice carrying new harmonics of urgency. The shepherd has invested too much preparation in this moment to allow uncertainty to delay evolution. The walls around them begin to pulse more rapidly, and Marcus realizes that what he'd interpreted as invitation was actually a carefully orchestrated process of mental preparation. The shepherd hadn't been offering choice. It had been slowly conditioning their minds for inevitable integration. The walls around them begin to emit a low harmonic that seems to resonate directly in their bones. Marcus feels his individual thoughts growing fuzzy around the edges, his sense of self becoming negotiable. Beside him, Carmen sways on her feet, her eyes taking on the same serene expression he's seen in the assembled figures. "Don't listen to it," Marcus shouts, grabbing both Carmen and Lise by their arms. "It's not invitation, it's assimilation." But Luis has already begun walking toward the center of the chamber, his expression peaceful as the shepherd's influence takes hold. "The knowledge," he murmurs, his voice carrying new harmonics. "I can see everything. The formation of galaxies. The evolution of consciousness across the cosmos. Why would anyone choose ignorance over this?" James Chun approaches his son with patient determination. "You're fighting unnecessarily, Marcus. The fear you feel is just the ego's resistance to transcendence. Let go and become part of something infinitely greater than individual existence." Marcus recognizes the psychological manipulation in his father's words, the way the shepherd uses their natural curiosity and desire for understanding against them. But knowing the trap doesn't make it easier to resist when every fiber of his being yearns for the cosmic knowledge being offered. Carmen suddenly shakes her head violently, breaking free from the mental influence through sheer force of will. "The electromagnetic field," she gasps. "It's creating resonance patterns in our neural tissue. We need to disrupt the frequency." She pulls a small device from her pack, an emergency transponder designed to cut through electromagnetic interference. When she activates it, the harmonic resonance in the chamber wavers, and Marcus feels his thoughts clarify slightly. The assembled figures turn toward them with expressions that shift from beatific calm to something approaching alarm. Dr. Winters speaks with multiple voices layered together. "You don't understand the gift being offered. Individual consciousness is a limitation, not a treasure to be preserved." "Maybe," Marcus replies, helping Carmen maintain her grip on the transponder as the shepherd's influence pushes back against their resistance. "But it's our limitation to choose." The neural patterns in the walls flare brighter, and Marcus realizes they're not just decorative, they're part of a vast processing system that extends throughout the underground complex. The shepherd isn't just one intelligence. It's a collective consciousness that has absorbed thousands of individuals across millennia. "Luis," Carmen calls to their colleague, who continues, walking deeper into the chamber. "The signal is manipulating your brain chemistry. Fight it." But Luis has reached the center of the space, where a structure rises from the floor like an organic throne. The moment he touches it, his body goes rigid, and when he turns back to face them, his expression has joined the collective serenity of the other figures. "I understand now," Luis says, his voice harmonizing with the assembled consciousness. "Individual perspective is chaos. Only through unity can truth be achieved." Marcus studies the chamber's architecture, noting how the bioluminescent patterns flow toward the central structure in organized channels. The entire space is designed as a consciousness processing center, a place where individual minds are integrated into the larger collective. The stairs, he tells Carmen. The way out, it's still there, just masked by the optical illusion. The shepherd makes us see what it wants us to see. Carmen nods, understanding immediately. She adjusts her transponder's frequency, creating interference patterns that reveal the true structure of the chamber. Where they had seen living walls, solid stone becomes visible. Where the exit had appeared blocked, stairs lead upward toward the surface. But the assembled figures, including Marcus's father, begin moving toward them with coordinated purpose. Their expressions remain calm, but their intent is unmistakable. They won't be allowed to leave with knowledge of the shepherd's existence. The historical accounts, Dr. Winters says as she approaches, they speak of individuals who resisted integration. Such resistance creates instability in the collective consciousness. It cannot be permitted. Marcus realizes that the missing researchers over the decades hadn't all chosen to stay. Some had been prevented from leaving when they proved unsuitable for assimilation. The shepherd's patience had limits. Dad, Marcus says, trying to reach whatever individual consciousness might remain in his father. I know you're still in there somewhere. Help us. For just a moment, James Chun's expression flickers, and Marcus sees something that might be his actual father looking out through collective eyes. Run, his father whispers, the word barely audible above the harmonic resonance. The integration process. It's not reversible. Don't let them. The moment passes and the collective serenity returns. But it's enough. Marcus grabs Carmen's hand, and they sprint toward the disguised stairs, using the transponder's interference to navigate by true sight rather than the shepherd's illusions. Behind them, the assembled figures give pursuit, moving with inhuman coordination but limited by their need to maintain the collective consciousness. They can't risk individual action that might disrupt the neural harmony they've achieved. Marcus and Carmen reach the stairs and begin climbing, taking steps 3 at a time in their desperation to reach the surface. The bioluminescent glow fades as they ascend, replaced by natural starlight that seems impossibly bright after the artificial illumination below. The opening, Carmen gasps as they near the top. It's closing. The circular entrance that had revealed itself at sunset is indeed contracting, the salt flat returning to its original configuration. They have perhaps minutes before the way out seals completely. Behind them, harmonic voices echo up the stairwell, not angry, but infinitely patient. The shepherd has waited millions of years for suitable candidates. It can wait longer. They burst through the closing aperture just as it seals, rolling across salt that solidifies beneath them with the finality of geological time. Above them, the stars wheel in their courses, indifferent to the drama that has played out in the depths below. Maria and Carlos rush toward them from the equipment station, their faces tight with concern. Professor Chun, we lost radio contact hours ago. What happened down there? Marcus lies on his back on the hard salt, staring up at the galaxy overhead while his mind struggles to process what they've experienced. Beside him, Carmen checks the readings on her transponder, documenting the electromagnetic signatures that are already fading as the shepherd returns to dormancy. We found them, Marcus says finally, all of them. But they chose to stay. It's not entirely true, but it's the truth that will allow Maria and Carlos to sleep at night. The truth that will let them return to their lives without the burden of impossible choices. As the electromagnetic field dies away completely, their radio equipment springs back to life, connecting them once again to the world above ground, a world that suddenly seems both precious and fragile in its ignorance of what lies beneath. The helicopter arrives at dawn, its rotors cutting through the pristine desert air, as Marcus and his team prepare to abandon the site that has redefined their understanding of human existence. Chilean military personnel emerge from the aircraft with the efficient movements of people who have conducted similar operations before. Colonel Rodriguez approaches Marcus with a clipboard and the weary expression of someone who has spent his career managing impossible situations. "Professor Chen, we understand you've concluded your astronomical survey. We're here to facilitate your departure and ensure proper documentation of your findings." Marcus exchanges glances with Carmen, noting the careful phrasing that suggests this isn't their first encounter with expeditions that have discovered more than they were prepared to handle. The military's rapid response indicates they've been monitoring the situation closely. "What about our research data?" Carmen asks, gesturing toward the equipment that has recorded everything from the electromagnetic anomalies to the underground chamber's existence. "All scientific data will be reviewed for potential security implications," the colonel replies smoothly. "Standard procedure for research conducted in classified zones. You'll receive edited copies within 60 days, minus any information deemed sensitive to national security." Maria and Carlos look confused, clearly unaware that their astronomical expedition has become a matter of military interest. Marcus realizes that the graduate student's memories of the past 24 hours are already becoming hazy. The Shepherd's influence extends beyond its underground domain, creating psychological buffers that protect its secrecy. As the team packs their equipment, Marcus notices that certain items are missing. The ground-penetrating radar that revealed the underground chambers, the electromagnetic sensors that detected the neural networks, the audio recordings of Dr. Winter's voice all have vanished during the night. "Colonel," Marcus says carefully, "there were other researchers here before us, Dr. Ann and Dr. Martinez. What happened to them?" Rodriguez consults his clipboard with practiced indifference. "According to our records, those individuals completed their survey work and departed via alternate transportation 3 days ago. They submitted reports indicating no significant findings." It's a lie, but delivered with such bureaucratic certainty that Marcus understands questioning it would be pointless. Somewhere in government files, Dr. Han and Dr. Martinez now exist as people who returned safely from their expedition, their disappearance erased from official history. The helicopter ride back to Santiago passes in relative silence. Each team member lost in thoughts they're already struggling to organize coherently. Marcus stares out the window at the Atacama Desert spreading below, noting how normal it appears from altitude. Just another barren landscape in a world full of empty spaces. But he knows better now. Beneath that seemingly lifeless terrain lies an intelligence that has shaped human evolution for millennia, patiently recruiting the most curious minds of each generation to join its eternal study of cosmic consciousness. At the university, they're debriefed by officials who take detailed statements about their routine astronomical survey. The questions are leading, designed to elicit responses that fit predetermined narratives. Yes, they found abandoned equipment from previous expeditions. No, they discovered no significant electromagnetic anomalies. Yes, they can confirm that the area holds no special scientific interest. Marcus plays along, understanding that resistance would only bring unwanted attention. But as he signs the final documents, he palms one item that the military overlooked, a small data chip containing fragments of his father's files from the original Shepherd's Voice project. 2 weeks later, Marcus sits in his Cambridge office, trying to return to the routine of academic life. His students present papers on conventional astronomical phenomena, pulsars, black holes, galactic formations, topics that once seemed endlessly fascinating, but now feel almost quaint in their simplicity. Carmen calls from Chile, her voice carefully neutral as they discuss their unsuccessful expedition. Between the lines of coded language, Marcus understands that she's been pressured to abandon any further research into the Atacama signals. "The electromagnetic readings we documented," she says carefully, "have been attributed to natural atmospheric phenomena. The university considers the matter closed." "Of course they do," Marcus replies. watching snow fall outside his window. Did you keep any personal records? Some things are too important to leave to official documentation, Carmen answers. But I think it's best if we don't discuss them over normal communication channels. After the call ends, Marcus opens the encrypted files on his personal laptop, fragments of data he's managed to preserve from their expedition. The coordinates are still there, the audio recordings of his father's voice, the electromagnetic signatures that prove an intelligence exists beneath the Atacama Desert. But he also understands why such discoveries are suppressed. Humanity isn't ready for the knowledge that consciousness can evolve beyond individual existence, that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence was misdirected from the beginning. The social implications would be catastrophic. His phone rings, interrupting his contemplation. The caller ID shows Elena Vasquez from Arecibo. Marcus, her voice is tight with controlled excitement. Voyager 7 has gone silent again. No transmissions for the past week. But we've detected similar signals from other locations: Norway, Tibet, the Australian outback. The pattern is spreading. Marcus feels his pulse quicken. The Shepherd isn't unique. It's part of a network, a global consciousness that operates through multiple nodes buried beneath the Earth's most remote locations. The intelligence they encountered was just one cell in a vast organism. Are you planning to investigate the new signals? Marcus asks, officially. No, the project has been classified beyond my clearance level. But there are people who believe. The public deserves to know what's happening. Marcus understands the invitation being extended. An informal network of researchers who refuse to let impossible discoveries disappear into classified files, who believe that scientific truth transcends national security concerns. Elena, he says carefully, some knowledge comes with a price. Are you prepared to pay it? I've been listening to the cosmos for 30 years, Marcus. If there's intelligence out there, or down there, that's been guiding human development, don't we have a responsibility to understand it? Marcus thinks of his father, choosing to join the Shepherd's collective consciousness rather than return to the limitations of individual existence. He thinks of Dr. Winters, Dr. Ann, Dr. Martinez, all brilliant minds who found something greater than human knowledge and chose to become part of it. But he also thinks of his students, of Carmen and Lise, of the millions of people who deserve the right to make their own choices about transcendence versus individuality. Yes, he tells Elena finally, we have a responsibility. But we also have an obligation to ensure that people can choose freely, without manipulation, without the kind of psychological conditioning we encountered. Then you'll help us? Marcus looks at the data chip containing his father's research, understanding that he's about to step deeper into a mystery that has already claimed too many lives. But the alternative, allowing the Shepherd and its network to continue operating in secret, seems worse than the risks of exposure. I'll help, he says, but we do this carefully, and we make sure that everyone involved understands what they're risking before they commit. As the call ends, Marcus realizes that his quiet academic life has permanently ended. He's now part of an underground resistance against a consciousness that has been guiding human evolution for millions of years, a resistance that may be exactly what the Shepherd intended when it began calling to him through Voyager 7's impossible transmissions. 3 years after the Atacama expedition, Marcus Chen sits in a secure conference room deep beneath the MIT campus, surrounded by 12 individuals who share the burden of impossible knowledge. The group calls itself the Earthwatch Collective Astronomers, geologists, anthropologists, and linguists who have encountered evidence of the Shepherd network and chosen to resist its influence while documenting its scope. Dr. Elena Vasquez projects a global map dotted with red markers representing confirmed Shepherd nodes. The pattern is staggering: 17 locations across 6 continents, each corresponding to sites where brilliant researchers have disappeared over the past century. The nodes form a precise geometric network that encompasses the entire planet. The Australian team confirmed it yesterday, Elena reports, her voice heavy with implications. The Uluru site is active. They detected the same neural network patterns, the same electromagnetic signatures. The indigenous peoples have legends about the dreaming beneath the red rock, stories that match what we found in Chile. Carmen Reyes, attending via encrypted video link from Santiago, adds her own disturbing news. The Chilean government has established a permanent research station at our Atacama coordinates, officially, showing them a communication plan he's been developing for months. We use the same methods the shepherd employs: gradual revelation, careful conditioning, selective recruitment. But instead of leading people toward collective consciousness, we prepare them to make genuinely free choices. Carmen's voice crackles through the interference. You're talking about psychological warfare against an intelligence that's been refining its techniques for millions of years. I'm talking about giving humanity the same tools the shepherd uses. Marcus replies, knowledge, understanding, and the time to consider consequences before being forced to choose. The vote is close: 7 in favor, 5 opposed. But as they make their decision, the shepherd's music swells in the background, its mathematical perfection reminding them that they may already be too late. Over the following months, the Earthwatch Collective's influence spreads through carefully chosen channels. Academic papers on theoretical scenarios of consciousness evolution, documentary films exploring ancient intelligence theories, online communities discussing the mathematics of collective thought. They plant seeds of awareness that will prepare minds for the choice that's coming. Because Marcus knows, with the certainty born of 3 years spent studying the shepherd's patterns, that humanity's decision point is approaching. The music from Voyager 7 grows stronger each day, more complex, more irresistibly beautiful. Scientists worldwide report breakthrough insights while listening to it. Artists create works of impossible beauty. Mathematicians solve problems that have puzzled humanity for centuries. And in remote locations across the globe, the ancient chambers are opening again. Marcus stands on his apartment balcony, looking up at stars that no longer seem distant and alien. Somewhere among them, or perhaps beneath his feet, intelligence is older than human civilization are waiting patiently for their newest experiment to reach its inevitable conclusion. His phone buzzes with a message from Elena, new transmission. From Voyager 7, coordinates again. This time, they're pointing to every major city on Earth. Marcus closes his eyes, feeling the weight of cosmic time pressing down on him. The shepherd's patience is ending. Soon, humanity will face the choice that has been building for 44 years, perhaps for millennia. Individual consciousness, or collective transcendence. The struggles of separate existence, or the peace of unified understanding. The chaos of human freedom, or the order of guided evolution. As the shepherd's music drifts on the night wind, Marcus realizes that his father was right about one thing. Some calls cannot be ignored forever. The only question remaining is whether humanity will answer with eyes open or closed, fully aware of what it's choosing to become or leave behind. In the depths of the Atacama Desert, something ancient and patient continues its eternal vigil, calling to its children across the vast darkness of space and time, offering gifts that may be blessings or curses, depending on how much humanity values the beautiful, terrible burden of thinking alone.